Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Gruver. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Welcome to another episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason Mefford.
And I'm Kathy Gruver, and we are here of day, God knows what, of the sequestering, depending on where you are in the world. Jason and I are in our robes, our pajamas. I have this one chunk of hair that just has a life of its own right now. So
sequestering, that sounds like so legal, like we're on a jury or something.
Yeah, we're sequestered.
But it probably sounds better than quarantined or anyway. We're sequestered. We're away.
We're sheltered in place. Quarantined is if you happen to get sick, and sequestered is, it's just a good word. So, but here we are, sequestered on day, God knows what. And we're going to talk about what you really want and how to get that thing. When I do coaching with clients, the first question I ask them is, what do you want? Because so often we know what we don't want. We can name off all these things that we don't want or we no longer want. But the true question is, what do you want? Because if you don't know, then you can't get it. You can't get towards that thing. I use the example of the Waze app or, the Google Maps. You don't just turn it on and go somewhere. You have to put a destination in mind, and how you get there can change. The routes can change, barriers can come up. But if you don't know what you want, then you can't get it. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yep. And actually give you some practical step-by-step advice, because what we're actually going to do is we're going to go through and kind of share kind of a smaller thing and a bigger thing, and how you can kind of break it down and really start using this time to be able to start moving towards whatever it is that you want. You have to clearly know what it is that you want and why you want to get there, but then there's all the practical steps of changing your habits so you're moving closer and closer towards that. So that's what we're going to kind of talk about today.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. The first couple of days of the shelter in place, at least my mentality was vacation, woo! And it was, playing in the garden, and it was watching a lot of TV, and it was sleeping in because I didn't have my normal schedule. And then the Capricorn part of me kicked in and went, oh shit, there's things I want to get done. Yeah. So first thing you have to do is step out of that vacation mindset, because for so many of us, not working also means not income. I'm a self-employed hypnotherapist, massage therapist, coach. If I'm not in my office, I typically don't make an income. So this is not only a time of opportunity. I know for a lot of people, it's a time of fear, but turning that into that opportunity is going to be better. It's going to get us to where we want to go. So first thing is, everyone take a deep breath and tell yourself it's okay. Everything's okay. Everything's going to be exactly as it should be.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be afraid of. I know it's unknown and it's scary, but it doesn't have to be. We're choosing to think about those things. So now, question.
Well, I was going to say, because as you were saying that, it just reminds me of another saying that one of the guys that I follow likes to say: everything always has been, is now, and always will be okay. Mm-hmm. We get through it. We've gotten through things in the past. We get through things currently, and we will in the future. Yeah. It's just, again, just use this as an opportunity, because again, like you said, both of us have things that we're trying to work on or do a little bit different based on kind of this extra time that we have.
Yep.
And so let's just kind of jump in and get going with it, right?
Yep.
So
pivot.
Yeah. So for me, what we thought we'd do is kind of do a little bit of a smaller thing. So I'll kind of share what I'm kind of doing and why, and then we'll do a bigger one that Kathy's going to talk about. That's a little bit more in depth, and it's going to take a little bit longer. But what are kind of some things you can actually do tangibly to help you start moving? And you'll see from both examples that there's going to be some similarities for both of them, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, I've been trying to work on my mindset for quite a while. I've had a morning routine for quite a while, but I felt like it was kind of getting a little stale, and that I was still just kind of going through the motions and was busy, but wasn't really doing a lot of the things that I wanted to do for my own improvement. Okay. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I've been trying to look at is how to redo my morning routine, how to incorporate some of these other things into it that I would like to do more of. And one of those things is reading. Okay. So one of the books that I just read in the last week or so is The Miracle Morning. We can put links in there about it, but in here, I think it gives some practical tips for this in thinking about, okay, now what do I want? I want to change my morning routine so that I feel like I'm more energized. I'm more actually taking the time for me so that for the rest of the actual workday, I can actually be more productive, right?
Yeah.
So, there's certain things that you have to do. Like I have to get my butt out of bed each morning, right? And so if I'm going to, use this morning time to do some things and incorporate more reading, we'll just take in this example, I have to first off block out the time, right?
Yep.
I mean, I usually go to bed fairly early. My family makes fun of me, but usually somewhere between 8:30 and 9:30, I go to bed because I usually wake up about 5:30.
Yeah.
Okay. So because of that, that's usually what I like. Now, for a while, I've been sleeping until 6:30 or 7. And, again, the problem is if my workday starts at 8 and I get up at 6:30 or 7, it doesn't give me the time to accomplish what I need to in the mornings.
Mhm.
So I have to go back and kind of say, okay, what are the things that I want to make sure and do in the morning? And one of the things I wanted to start incorporating more of is reading. Okay. Now, in order to do that, you have to set aside time, which means I have to get up a little bit earlier. And I actually have to plan out how I want my morning to go.
Yep.
Right. So you actually have to plan it out. You have to kind of schedule it. You have to know before you go to bed what you're going to do when you get up, or else we end up being aimless. Right. So this was a good tip from that Miracle Morning book was, the first thing that it's Hal Elrod wrote the book, and we'll put the links in there. But the first thing you have to prepare before you go to bed,
Mhm.
right? So, but three of the things he suggests you do when you first get out of bed, right? Well, if you have trouble waking up with the alarm, move the alarm further away, so you actually have to get out of bed to turn it off. Okay, so I've never had a problem with that. Get your exercise clothes out because you're going to put on your exercise clothes first thing in the morning, because if you're actually going to go out and exercise, you're much more likely to do it if you have that in place, right? He suggests doing some affirmations at night about, and just kind of being clear on what you're going to do. And so first thing in the morning is get up, put on your workout clothes, brush your teeth, because it's a simple, easy habit, and then drink a bunch of water. Now, if I'm going to do that, again, I have to know where my workout clothes are. So at 5:30 in the morning, I'm not bumbling around trying to find them, right?
Right.
I have to
You're
go.
waking up your wife.
Yeah, I have to go down the hall. I have to go to the bathroom. I'm in the bathroom already. Now I brush my teeth, right? And then I walk into, the kitchen or dining room area, and there's my flask of water that's already full because I filled it last night, right?
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden I've done boom, boom, boom. I've done 1, 2, 3 things, right? And now I need to know, okay, now what am I going to do with the rest of it? Once I've done those 3 things, now how am I going to spend that next hour or hour and a half of my time? And so there's certain things that I want to do. And like I said, I mean, I've been doing self-hypnosis or meditation each morning normally anyway. I've usually been listening to podcasts, getting out and exercising, walking, doing stuff like that. But I wanted to now incorporate reading into what I'm doing too.
Yep.
So, one of the simple things that I had to do was just change and say, okay, instead of, sitting in my chair out in the back patio and kind of waking up as I'm drinking my coffee, listening to a podcast in the morning, I'm going to read during that time.
Nice.
And I'm going to listen to the podcast while I'm walking, because I can combine those two activities, right? I can't be walking down the street, going on my run or my walk, looking at my Kindle in front of me. Now, maybe I could do an audiobook. You could do an audiobook,
Sure.
or you could do a podcast or music or whatever. But so I've started to get into the habit of trying to, have each morning kind of the same. So I, get out of bed, I put on my workout clothes, I go down to the toilet, I brush my teeth, I drink a bunch of water to begin with. I grab my iPad because I usually read on my Kindle. Now, where do you think my iPad is? It's sitting on the dining room table with my water flask. Why? Because I don't have to, it's just right there, right? So that's where the preparation beforehand will help you to actually do this. So every night before I go to bed, right, I have a little routine. I take off my sweater, I take off my hat, I put my glasses down,
Oh,
I
very
make sure
Mr.
my,
Rogers of you.
yeah, it is very Mr. Rogers of me. I make sure that my iPad is there and my water is there so that when I get up in the morning and I come out, it's there. I grab it, I've made my coffee, I go sit down 20 or 30 minutes, I read.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that, right, then I get up and I go for my walk or my run, for the half an hour. When I'm done with that, then I come in and I do, my self-meditation stuff. And so you start having that kind of in a process. Now, the other thing, if, again, Capricornish or just nerdish like me, you can even create a little checklist because there's a lot of satisfaction, right, in being able to check off that you did those things every single day. And so I have, well, wherever my little thing is here, you won't be able to see it that well, but I've got a whole little thing here.
Wow.
I know, look at that. That's like on steroids, isn't it?
So much more anal than mine.
Where there's those
You
certain
generate a to-do list.
It's my daily kind of, this is my morning
Yeah.
routine.
Once you have it down.
These are the things I have to do every day, and so I check them off. Now, here's where most people fall into the trap, right? Because again, it's a pretty simple thing, but you have to prepare beforehand. You have to know what you're going to do and kind of run through in your mind what that's going to look like. Because if you don't have that figured out and you wake up at 5:30 in the morning with foggy brain,
Yes.
you're going to be like, and you're not going to know what to do.
Yeah, you're going to lay there till 8.
You're going to go back into bed, right? So, but having the checklist, but this is again where people usually fall down is it takes time to reprogram the habits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So again, there's been a lot of different research done. People throw out 21 days, people throw out 30 days, people throw out 90 days, right? Okay. Here's reality is, within about 21 days, your body starts to adapt to whatever change has been done.
Yes.
So they found that out from, people that had limbs amputated, that at about the 21-day mark, there was something that shifted and people kind of became used to the fact that they no longer had that limb to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But it doesn't, you have to continue to integrate it until about day 30 or 31, until really it gets kind of programmed in and you're just doing it. Right. And so every day, those little things, preparing beforehand, knowing what order you're going to do things in, blocking out the time, right? One thing I've had to do for the most part, my work day for people outside used to start at 8:00. Well, I realized that a lot of times I couldn't accomplish everything I wanted to if I had an 8:00 meeting. So I also had to change, my calendar so people can only book on my calendar from 9:00 or later to give me that extra little bit of time in the morning as well.
That's fabulous. Oh my God, I kept totally Capricorning out on this. I took so many notes. Okay.
So again, it's a simple thing, but you can start to see some of the things that we're going to have to do. Now, Kathy's going to talk about one that's a little bit bigger.
Well, I'm going to talk about what you just said, because as simple as that is, I want to read more. Everyone's like, okay, so go read more. But you broke it down into such, this is so great. Okay. So the first thing you said is sorry, I'm having a moment.
We may not get to yours. We may run out of time before.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Sorry.
I don't need to write my damn book. You have to read more. Come on. You talked about why you wanted these things. You wanted more time for you. You knew it was going to make you more productive. It was going to make you more energized. So asking, what do you want? Yes. But also, why do you want that? Because so often that thing we want actually isn't going to give us the why. And I think in one of the episodes I talked about the inmate who all his affirmations were about winning the lottery.
Yeah.
Well, and after asking the question of why he didn't want to win the lottery, he wanted to help people. And he felt the only way he could do that was to be rich, to provide blah, 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 blah. Go back and watch the episode. We'll figure out which one that was. But
Yep.
so it's like, why do you want those things? More time for yourself, more energized, more productivity. So asking that why do I want to write another book? Why do I want to exercise more? Knowing the why is actually going to help us. And then all the things that you need to make this stuff happen, you need to set the time aside. You need to prepare. And when you talked about laying out putting your exercise clothes on first, I did a dance class in my living room last night because that's the only place to do it now. I put on my full dance class clothes.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need to, but to me, that is an anchor. That is an anchor that I'm going to exercise now. So when you get into that habit of putting on those certain clothes, putting on work clothes, I mean, we're joking today that we're in our robes to do this. I can't work in a robe. Like, I can't. It does not work for me. I have to put on at least somewhat real clothes, or else it triggers, I'm watching Netflix. It doesn't trigger, now it's work time. When I'm doing speaking gigs, to me, it's all about the dress and heels. If I'm in pants or if I'm in low shoes, it just doesn't feel right to me, because my speaker persona, that ego state, is anchored in the dress, the heels, that kind of thing. Some guys put on a watch, some guys put on dress shoes.
Yeah.
Whatever that anchor is for you to get you into that ego state to do that thing you say you want to do. Your ego state of reading is probably different than my ego state of writing my book. But that, when you mentioned that anchor, that thing.
Well, because you brought up the anchoring, because again, we've talked about that before, but I think that's an important point for people to realize. All those little things, brushing your teeth, who really cares if you brush your teeth in the morning? I mean, okay, well, never mind. We won't go there. But it's a relatively little thing, but it anchors you. Right. And so again, as we're developing these habits or these new ways of trying to do stuff, anything you can do to try to anchor yourself at each of those different decision points is going to make it more likely that you make it to the next one.
Yep.
And so that's why the checklist, checking things off, having the work clothes out, brushing your teeth, all of those are little anchors on the way to get you to where you want to be.
Yep. And my next thing I was going to say was checklist. Yes, absolutely. Write stuff down. Have that plan laid out. You're not going to build a building without a list of things that need to be done, and you're going to start with that foundation and you're going to build from there. You're not going to try to put the roof on first. You've got to put the plumbing in. You've got to, there's a certain unfolding of an order that works. Taking the time, having a plan, talking about the yes and no thing. You said, if you schedule an 8 o'clock meeting, it doesn't allow you enough time. So you pivot to now start your meetings at 9, because as we've talked about in other episodes, when you say yes to one thing, you have to say no to something else. Yep. So you saying yes to that early morning meeting meant your personal stuff was not happening. So maybe you work an hour later, maybe you squeeze a meeting in someplace else, maybe you expand those times. It's about adapting that so that all of your needs are met and making sure you're saying yes and no to the right things. Make it easy for yourself. Have those clothes laid out. Have your water flask next to your laptop so that you can go do that thing that you want to do. Make it easy for yourself as possible. And then
because it's funny, even about the water.
Yeah.
Because when I first read that in the book, I kind of thought, okay, this is kind of silly. But then I went, hold it. Because I have a flask. I usually, I drink a couple of flasks worth of water a day. And I leave it. We have, coasters on our dining room table area, which is by our back patio. So that's usually where it sits. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, usually by the end of the night, it's pretty empty. And so it would sit there empty. And then I would get up in the morning and think, oh, I need to drink water. And I would pick it up and there'd only be a little bit in there. Yep. Now it's only 20 feet to the refrigerator where the cold water is to put in it. But that 20 feet was a distance that would make me not drink the water first thing in the morning like I should. So if I do it and I've created an anchor and a habit at night to be able to do that, then it's there. Now I don't have an excuse to actually do it.
Absolutely. Well, and the same thing, it's like I keep, refilled bottles of cold water in the fridge, and I take 2 up to bed at night, and in the morning I bring down the empty ones and I fill them up, put them back in the fridge. It's become that habit. I knew you and I were recording early this morning. So last night before bed, I went, hey, let's do the dishes so that they're done so that I can wake up and everything's clean and put away, as opposed to, so that planning, sometimes it takes some planning. But here's one that you didn't mention. And this is going to help, the reading could. Enlist help. And what I mean by that is two things. One, have someone in your household, someone in your circle, in your sphere, keep you accountable for things. Let them know, like when you and I were talking about wanting to run the marathon, you had people who you were running with, people who were keeping you accountable to those goals. I think that can be so helpful. But other than that is, if there's a skill that you don't have, something that you don't want to take, that I don't do my own website. Could I learn it? Sure. I don't want to. I don't have the time for that. That's what Sarah Caputo talked about, being in the weeds.
Yep.
What is on the top of your triangle? What is the highest purpose of what your day entails? And I just put out a bunch of Facebook ads and a bunch of Yelp ads for my online coaching. I don't know how to do that efficiently and effectively. So I brought in a VA who helped me put together the ad, who helped me put together the landing page, who helped me put together. I enlisted the help of other people to make sure that my goals are met. And these people love supporting me. It's once again, an exchange of energy and income. It's keeping things, in a time where there's a lot of people who aren't working. I don't do my own laundry for my massage practice. I have people who do that because that is not the highest and best use of my time. So if you want to accomplish something, especially if it's a bigger goal, like I seriously do want to finish my book, I have to hold myself accountable, and I want others to hold me accountable. If I don't have a deadline, it's probably not going to get done as quickly. So
if you don't have a deadline, it won't get done.
Right.
You have to have a deadline.
Right, exactly. And that sometimes takes other people to hold you accountable. So what else did I write? Yeah, accountable, plan. Does what you're doing lead you to your goal? Does spending the third hour watching Netflix lead you to your goal? Or do you need to turn off the TV for a second and actually work towards what you want? And again, if you don't know what your goal is, if you don't know what that end result on Waze is, there's no route to take. So those are the notes that I took on yours. And this applies to everything. This is not just, and I'm glad we started with the reading one. And here's me like, oh, it's too simple. I was wrong.
You didn't know where I was going to go.
I was wrong and you were right.
Oh, hey, we got that recorded too. I'm going to have to use that later.
I'm going to so edit that out. I have the power of the editing.
Yeah.
I'll admit it when I'm wrong. But no, it's true. It's like, if you can't accomplish the small things, then you can't accomplish the big things. And if you can't find that grace and that ease in sweeping leaves or cleaning cat shit, then you're not going to find it in the big stuff.
Well, and it's the, because maybe there's a good point too that you just brought up. There is a lot of times, especially now, we all want to do a big thing. I don't know how many people I've talked to that want to write a book. We've both written books. It takes a lot of time to write a book. There's a lot to it. A lot of people want to do it, but when I talk to them, if they can't do the little things,
right,
there's no fucking way you're going to write a book, folks.
Right.
If you can't get up in the morning, if you can't do these little things, if you don't have integrity with yourself on doing these little things and gaining, the commitment, the dedication, the consistency in doing the little things, you're never going to accomplish the big things. So never underestimate doing the simple and small things, because until you get those right, you're not going to accomplish the big things.
Well, and the big things are a series of little things. And
It's a series of little things.
I could never write a book. It's like, well, you don't sit down to write a book. You write word by word. You don't wake up one morning and go, I'm going to run a marathon if you've never put on 10 issues before. It is those series of little things. It's all this stuff that we just said. This came out of Jason saying he wanted to read more. He's not saving the world. I mean, you are. It's like same thing when you and I decided we wanted to do this podcast. We didn't just jump on Zoom and start recording shit. How many meetings did we have before we figured out what in the world we wanted to do with ourselves? Hey, the retreat might be on hold.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah, just saying.
The whole little contact issue.
Yeah. We can socially distance retreat, the SDR. Yeah.
Okay. New norm. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll Zoom it.
But no, it's the same thing, because just again, like you said, writing a book is a bigger deal, but all the things we just talked about is what you have to do. Yeah. If you're going to write your book, you got to block out time on your calendar, half hour a day, whatever it ends up being, because that's the only way the book gets written, right? And if we sit around, because book writing is great, especially. I mean, Hemingway had some great quotes about this, and some other people, but it's pretty much, his butt was in the seat every day at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
That was his job. 9 o'clock, his butt was in his seat.
Exactly.
And, a lot of people say, oh, I have to wait for the muse to show up, or I have to wait, to be inspired. But the real people who do that and are authors and take their art seriously, the muse shows up at 9 o'clock when you sit your butt in the chair and you just start typing.
Okay, now look, I'm going to be yes, and I'm going to be contrary again because that's my day. I am not one of those people that can schedule writing. I'm one of those people that go, oh, I want to do it right now. And I sit down and I might pour 2 or 3 hours out. But I can take steps to get myself into that place of wanting
to be able to do it.
It's about shifting ego state. It's about getting excited to write, about looking forward to that. The same way we did when we would go to Disneyland or vacation, like you would count it down on a calendar and every day you'd look at that and you're like, oh, 2 days more, or, the whole countdown to Christmas thing. We can get ourselves worked into that state to be excited about, oh my God, I'm going to get to write today and da-da-da. Have the right tools. If you don't have Word installed on your computer, you're probably not writing today. Set yourself up to succeed. And I have a friend who's a screenwriter, and he was one of the first people to download the screenwriting software. And he was turning out so much more product than his cohort because he had the one that helped indent and formatted it correctly. I mean, this was years ago when this stuff just came out. It didn't have faults. Yes. Did it often call the character by spell the wrong name? Yes. It was correctable. But he gave himself the tools that at that point were really expensive to make sure he succeeded. So set yourself up, figure out what you need. It's the 5 questions. What do you want? What do you need to get there? Why are you doing it? How can you do it? Who can help you?
Yeah.
5.
Well, I like your idea there too about the, you need to feel that inspiration. For you, that's when you get the excited about it. Mm-hmm. So here's the, the yes and kind of thing too, right? Is just block out the 2 hours on your calendar. Mm-hmm. and then forget that you did that, but anchor yourself at, I don't know, half an hour beforehand or whatever to get you like super excited.
Yes.
So that when that time that you've blocked out on your calendar comes, you're in that inspiration and you're in that groove for that time period.
Yeah.
So it's a great way of kind of incorporating together, because, the hard part is if you feel really inspired and you just dig in and you were supposed to be doing something else during that time, especially if it was something that, a family member wanted you to do, that's when as artists we get in big trouble. So if we can kind of prep it so that it's like, hey, I've got 2 hours over here to do this and I'm going to excite myself, a half an hour beforehand. So when I have time on my schedule, I can go and do it. That's a great little hack.
There was nothing worse than me getting into that zone, and I would be writing an article or an interview or something. I'd be ready. And my client would show up and I'd be like, oh, shit, okay, hang on. Switch hats, switch ego state, it was, but there was the writer part of me was like, oh crap, I was just getting into it, so. But yeah, block out the time.
Just block out the time.
Don't laugh. Okay, well, hey, so you're going to read more.
I'm going to read more.
Yep. I'm going to write a book. Another one.
I guess that'll be one of the books I'll be reading then too once it gets done, huh?
My communication book. Say what? How to communicate anything to anyone. It's halfway done. And then I got derailed.
Well, I'm going to be excited to read it when it comes out.
Yay. All right. Hey, this was fabulous. We should let everyone go do that thing.
Well, yeah. So take what, if you need to go back, re-listen to this and make, take some notes, but it's pretty much kind of a step-by-step. We gave you 5 or 6 different things to kind of do, knowing why and preparing for it, planning, getting everything kind of lined out, setting up those little anchor kind of things, getting help, maybe from people to learn how to do the thing or to help hold you accountable.
Yep.
The checklist, some of these little things, and then to show up and do it consistently. Because again, that's why most people, all their New Year's resolutions get busted after 7 or 14 days because they don't stick with it long enough to actually create those new habits that you need to be able to get what you want.
or they realized it was something they didn't really want.
And they pivot.
Or there was something else that I forgot.
And sometimes that's what happens.
What was I gonna do? Yeah. Oh, that'll come to me later.
Yeah.
Or they make it. That was it. I got it. Or they make it too hard. They make it unaccomplishable. I don't want to have my book done by this afternoon. That's not reasonable. That's, so make it something that you can actually accomplish. You reading every day is something that you can accomplish. Me finishing my book at some point during the sequestering that we decided we're doing, the sequestering, that's doable. So make it a accomplishable goal.
Yep.
What do they call the SMART goals?
Specific, measurable, action-oriented, relevant to the goal, and time-bound.
Yeah. So there you go. Be smart.
So go out and be smart.
I'm on it. Okay. Yeah, another episode.
All right.
We're going through our time and even more so. All right. I'm Kathy Gruver. I could be reached at kathygruver.com.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. So go out, accomplish what you want, take the steps that we taught you today, and start changing your habits so you can get what you actually really want. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Fire and Earth Podcast. Peace.
Yes.